please rise for invocation by Pastor Stephen Johnson of Jesus Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you bow your heads in prayer with me? Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, tonight for this opportunity to gather together, and we come to you according to your word and according to your will. We pray for your blessings and your peace over this nation and those in leadership over us, that your hand of blessing would be upon them, that you would give them wisdom and guidance. Lord, we pray for our nation, our state, our county, and this city. We pray for the men and the women that sit in places of authority in this city. We pray for this council tonight as they meet and discuss and deliberate and make decisions. We pray for your wisdom, Lord, and your guidance. And Lord, we ask all of this, Lord, in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Pastor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilman Grubbs.
Present.
Councilman Bastian.
Here.
Councilman Stiltner.
Here.
Vice Mayor Foley.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Here. What's that noise? Whose phone?
Hey, our council has theme music.
Okay. We are to that point where the City Council Town Center CRA joint meeting is going to be called to order. Call the roll for the Town Center CRA.
Chairman Foley.
Here.
Tracy Grubbs.
Here.
Drew Bastian.
Here.
Scott Stiltner.
Here.
Don Burnett.
Here.
Michael Benedict.
5 of the 6 of us are here, so we have a quorum as a Town Center CRA, and all 5 of us from the City Council are present, so we have a full quorum with the council. Well, I guess we need to call the roll again for this part of the meeting from the council as well.
Mayor Burnett.
Here.
Councilman Bastian.
Here.
Councilman Stiltner.
Here.
Vice Mayor Foley.
Here.
Councilman Grubbs.
Here. It's just one of those tough questions that you've had to answer.
Sorry.
Are there any objections to the notice of the meeting? Hearing none, the notice is accepted. So I'll be opening all the items for joint discussion by the City Council and the CRA. Chairman Foley, will you call for the votes of the CRA, and I will be calling for the vote of the City Council at the end of that?
I will.
Okay. And switch the tab. Item C3 is ordinance 2023-10, an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the River Master Development Agreement and Conceptual Development Plan for approximately 12.4 acres located within the Planned Community Development Port Orange Riverwalk District, providing for repeal from conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Need a motion for approval?
I'll make one on behalf of the city council.
I'll second.
And I need one on behalf of the CRA.
I'll motion for a second, or first for the CRA.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second on both the first reading. And Matt, your skip seemed to, did I miss the approval of the minutes?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, let me backtrack. We have the item open on the floor. Let me also go ahead and get a motion and a second on approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second. On behalf of the Town Center CRA, we have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second on behalf of the council.
So moved.
Second. For the CRA, all in favor signify by saying aye. Approval of the
Aye.
minutes.
Aye. Aye.
On behalf of the council.
Aye.
Aye.
Actually, I should have let you do it, but no.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's jumping on. Do you need me to do that, Matt? Or are we good?
Can I get I just want the full motion on the 2 that were just made. There's some subject to provisions in there. If you can give me the full motion.
You want the CRA motion? Someone else will need to make that.
Both. One as the city council, one for the CRA, but I need the full motion with the subject to provisions.
You need that read out?
Yes.
Okay. Can someone from the CRA please read that out.
Move to recommend approval of the proposed Riveryard Master Development Agreement and Conceptual Development Plan as set forth in the ordinance 2023-10, consistent with the Port Orange Town Center Plan, as amended, subject to City Council approval of the right-of-way vacation of portions of Halifax Drive and Herbert Street on the September 5th, 2023 agenda, and authorizing CRA Chair and Agency Clerk to execute all necessary documents.
That is the motion, I second.
All right, there we go.
On behalf of the council, move to approve ordinance number 2023-10, approving the Riveryard you know what, I'm the council, I
I
can't
was
do
going
that
to say,
one.
allow me to do that.
That's your turn.
Yep, that's what I was trying to get to. All right. Move to approve ordinance number
moving parts.
2023-10, approving the Riveryard Master Development Agreement and Conceptual Development Plan, subject to the approval of the right-of-way vacation of a portion of Halifax Drive and Herbert Street on the September 5th, 2023 agenda, and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute all necessary documents.
That's the one I second.
So we have a motion, a second, by both the CRA and the council. The item is open on the floor for discussion. We want to open all items 3, 4, and 5 together. Therefore, the next item is item C4, the vacation of the portion of Halifax Drive right-of-way and the portion of Herbert Street right-of-way. This is a discussion item. Vote on this item will occur on September 5th at the City Council meeting on that date. The next item for consideration is item C5, consideration of the temporary construction easements for the property generally located at the northeast corner of Ridgewood and Dunlawton, which formerly known as Dave's Pest Control, which is owned and operated by the CRA and city. I do need a motion from the CRA. You're going to ask for that.
Yep. I need a motion from the CRA for item C5, approval of temporary construction easements for parcels owned by the CRA and jointly owned by the city.
Second.
No, that's,
No.
you're reading the motion. I'll make the motion. You
I
can
need
second.
someone to make it.
Move to approve the temporary construction easements for parcels owned by the CRA and jointly owned by the city, subject to the approval of ordinance 2023-10 and authorizing the chair and agency clerk to execute all documents.
Second it.
All right, motion second.
I need the same motion from somebody for the city.
Council will come back to that one, so you will not need it for the city.
Okay. It's open on the floor, thus. With that, items 3, 4, and 5 are all open. Who do we have presenting, Wayne?
Tim Berman, Community Development. So tonight we are here to one of many steps moving forward with the Bristol Development Group's development project for Riverwalk. We got this nice slide here which goes over the components for tonight that we're going to discuss. However, the CRA and council kind of summarized them very well for me already then, but it is the master development agreement and the concept plan, discussion on the vacation of Herbert Street, a portion of Herbert Street and Halifax Drive, and a temporary construction over the entire project area. We'll get a little bit more into the presentation details on those, but those are just kind of the 3 items we'll be going over tonight then.
Tim, just to set everybody's mind straight as you do this, you're talking about the master development agreement. We're not talking about a site plan or anything like that. This is just
No, sir. This is
just the conceptual start of this. So just want to make sure that we're framing the conversation properly.
correct. This
Sorry,
is
go ahead.
basically the request is for a master development agreement and concept development plan on the subject property. This is 12.4 acres at the Bristol Development Group. Portion of it is owned by the city that the city is selling to them. Also includes 4 out parcels that Bristol has either put under contract themselves or purchased. That area is highlighted in blue on the screen there. It's at the corner of Dunlawton and Halifax Drive up to Ridgewood Avenue, and then includes the Dave's Pest Control property. The 12.4 acres is currently zoned planned commercial Riverwalk, so it's got an existing zoning district already established on there, which allows for mixed-use projects. However, that zoning district allows for developers, if they have a more unique project that needs some flexibility from the code, it allows them to apply for a master development agreement and conceptual development plan. And that allows us to establish the framework for that project. As indicated, this MDA creates the framework and establishes design requirements that are outside the code, and that allows us to move forward with the next step, which would be a site plan where you get into more detail as to the design of the stormwater, what kind of plants we're putting there, the streets design. This is more just a framework to get us to that next step to move forward then. Again, it allows the developer to propose requests that provide a better project, not only for the city, but also for the developer then. So in this case, the MDA provides a framework for their Riverwalk project. It establishes the allowed uses in the project, the unit count in terms of multifamily, parking and design requirements, adjustments to the land development code requirements that are unique to the project, such as building height, setback requirements. Also establishes the guidelines for development of streetscapes, which we currently don't have in our code, the roadway network, and the general location of the key project elements such as the park, the multifamily structure, and the commercial. And then finally, it establishes a phasing requirement for the project. Moving on to the conceptual development plan, which is included as part of the exhibit to the master development agreement. This is basically just to establish a general layout of where the key elements of this project will be located then. This includes basically a waterfront park. It's about 1.5 acres between the Halifax River and the Halifax Drive, which will be a private road then. That also includes a public trail, amphitheater, and a riverfront bar restaurant use there. Also, the concept plan identifies the general location of the commercial is. That's the area in pink. Up to above 30,000 square feet of commercial can be in that general area. Also identifies the general location of where the multifamily structure will be. Within this multifamily structure, there will be a parking garage. Inside the interior of that, then, it identifies where that is. Establishes basically the roadway network, marina, streetscape. A lot of the key elements of the project, this concept plan shows is generally where those are going to be located. So when we move to site plan, we basically are building off of that. The project phasing for it is basically consists of essentially 2 phases. We have first is the phase 1. This phase is required to be completed within 48 months of the closing date on the project. It will consist of 20,000 square feet of building space for retail or restaurant uses, parking to support the retail and restaurant uses. This could be either a combination of surface, garage, or street parking. The private road network, which would be Herbert Street, River Yard Drive, and Halifax Drive. The Festival Street, which is located right in that general area in front of the retail shops here then. The Riverfront Park, the Riverfront Park Bar and Grill, and the necessary site infrastructure would be all completed within phase 1. The other improvements can be completed in phase 1 or in future phases, but are not required to be completed within that time frame. Those would consist of the remaining square footage of commercial space, a possible hotel, a marina and day dock, multifamily building, parking garage, and the use of the Dave's Pest Control site as an overflow parking area.
So none of that would have to be completed in that 48 months?
Those items would not be required to be completed in 48 months.
Okay.
Basically, items that were basically completed within 48 months were the key elements we thought council wanted, basically the commercial space, the waterfront park, the parking. All those basically were the ones that we wanted to get the time frame on then. Now Bristol will basically get up and speak there. They intend to build those there, but they would not be required to be done on that time frame then.
But they do want to get it done because they have a profit incentive.
And also too, Charles can speak more to this too, in terms of the timing of the construction of the build there. The multifamily structure may take longer to complete then versus the commercial. And our focus was to get that commercial, get that park, get the parking as quick as possible.
Okay.
As with any MDA and concept plan that you typically see, there are some policy considerations that have to be made again. On this project, as we looked at our land development code and what Bristol was proposing, our code is more geared toward the larger scale developments of individual uses of commercial and multifamily along major roadways, which require larger buffers, larger setbacks, surface parking in the front, significant amount of foundation landscaping around the building. This project is designed to be more compact, pedestrian oriented, which some of those codes do not allow us to get that type of project developed. So we had to look at what our code required and what deviations need to be made so this project can move forward. We basically got them broken down to about 5 categories. There were some design criteria deviations. This is regarding building height. The code currently allows 65 feet. The proposal now is 105 feet. This is kind of twofold. Basically, the height of the building helps us screen the parking garage. If you look at basically the concept, this layout here, the parking garage is enclosed fully within the multifamily building. So no matter which viewpoint you're looking at this project, you're going to see the exterior of a building, not the side of a parking garage. Parking garage is looking to 6 to 7 stories, so we needed to get the height there to make sure we screen that parking garage. Also too, and just in general, the height of the units, as we go with more upscale units there, higher ceilings, so we're not basically, which helps us, get basically better rents, basically more people into that area then. So that was the request for the building height. The setbacks were designed for, as we're trying to get a more denser project and we're trying to create more usable space entertainment areas, sometimes we have to basically reduce those setbacks then. So this gives us flexibility with setbacks in this project. Parking requirements design, basically it's just, we don't have street parking in our code, so we're establishing, requirements for street parking dimensions. We're also establishing requirements for parking garage. Our code has nothing regarding the parking garage space requirements. So this establishes that. It also creates a new parking ratio for the multifamily of 1.5 space per unit. The majority of the units in the project will be 1-bedroom units. There will be some in 2 and 3, but a majority of the units will be 1-bedroom units then for the multifamily. Tree and landscape requirements, as we stated, the foundation plans you typically see along Dunlawton on those projects does not work well for this project because you want to have that space in front of the retail shops and restaurants to be more usable outdoor dining area. So what we've created was removing the foundation requirements and creating a streetscape requirement. This pushes the landscape further out to the roadways, helps make the roadways more attractive, and provide those restaurants and retail more outdoor usable area to help the pedestrians walk through there and create that vibe that we're trying to get with this project. Signage, there's a few signage requirements that were related to more of our temporary construction signage, and Bristol just wanted to make sure that they had significant or sufficient room on there to advertise tenants that are going to be coming to the project, market the project, and also identify the multiple disciplines that have worked on this project then. So we've modified some of the signage requirements. The last one here it's a temporary overnight docking. As one of the future phases, they will be looking to do a marina in this area, and we wanted to have the opportunity for boats. They come down to spend the night, 2 or 3 nights at this project, and go from there. So we've allowed that in this MDA. And the last one is something that we currently have in our code that we're able to utilize in, when there's issues, slight adjustments, usually 10 to 15% less in terms of a setback to allow administrative adjustments on there. But in an MDA and concept plan, you don't have that flexibility. If you can't meet the requirement, even if it's by 1 foot, we have to do an MDA amendment. So the thought is to kind of utilize that administrative policy that's currently in the code right now and apply it to this MDA. So if we are in site plan design or construction there and there's a 1 foot issue, then instead of having to go back through council and planning commission to get an MDA approved, which could be 3 months, then this would allow staff to make the administrative call on that, properly document it then, and keep the project moving. So it's more from an efficiency standpoint that was put into the code, or the MDA. As we spoke earlier, there is a request to vacate portions of Herbert Street and Halifax right-of-way. Those are included in the project. The intent is for Bristol would basically retain that property, and then they would be developing those streets as private roads for their project. There would be access and utility easements over there, so the public would be able to access them, and also our utilities department would get in there if needed to get into city utilities underground then. Again, this item would be considered at the next city council meeting on September 5th. And the last item is a temporary construction easement for the property. This allows basically Bristol to, if we're moving forward and they want to get onto the property before the closing, to start preliminary work on it, such as installing erosion control measures, beginning some site clearing, tree trimming or removal, or just storage of construction equipment and material. This allows them the ability to do that before we start, or before they own the property then. The reason why both the CRA and the city council have to approve it is that purple area consists of about 18 different parcels, and half of them are owned by the CRA, half of them owned by the city council, or city then, so that's why both have to do it. I can't tell you which ones are which then, but that's kind of why we put it up here for the approval.
Please don't try.
Yeah, I'll get it wrong. So at the end of it, basically the recommendation is, for the CRA recommendation is approval of the River Yard Master Development Agreement and Conceptual Development Plan, including the policy issues discussed in the staff report, and approval of the temporary construction easement. The City Council recommendation is approval of the River Yard Master Development Agreement and Conceptual Development Plan, including the policy issues discussed in the staff report. And then, as indicated, the next public hearing on this would be September 5th, and those 3 items would be voted on.
Okay. Why don't we hear from the developer to see if Charles wants to talk us out of it?
I think I'm gonna let Tim do my part. That's
Right.
great.
I think he pretty much did. Charles, what would you do? Is there anything you want to add to that?
I'll add just a little bit.
All right.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Work system.
Mayor Burnett and council members, it's a privilege and honor to be back here, and we're excited to reach this milestone. do I
And do me a
just,
favor, just tell me who you are for the record
Oh.
so that the clerk doesn't give me a funny look.
Charles Carlisle, Bristol Development Group.
Thank you. I didn't want ever funny look.
Whoop, well, I just lost the first slide. I can't, but I think you all know, oh, it's not showing up on the screen.
Can we fix that?
Okay,
There
here
we
we
go.
go. So, these are aerials we took, and by the way, we've taken drone photography from all around the site to show what views will be from the residences around here, and excited about that. But just as these photos illustrate, this is just a really, really special site. You may recall, in fact, I think most of you were there when we had our workshop on site and went through a lot of the design elements and made a lot of the decisions that are reflected in the master development agreement and on the site plan that's underway. And I should have mentioned, we do have, for any beyond my third grade ability to answer, we have our attorney here who has done the heavy lifting on this, and our landscape architect, Dix Height from the Orlando area, who've also done a lot of this work, and Randy Hudak from Zev Cohen, who's also been very, very involved in this. So one of the things we made decisions about while we were on site was about preserving some of these trees despite some of the challenges of doing that because of the current grade of the property. It doesn't meet what grade we need to get above the floodplain, but we found some special trees along Halifax Drive on both sides that we can save by creating little islands and protecting those. And so, and you all saw some of those decisions
Yeah.
being made while we were out there. This is a picture of the 6 parcels that the city did not control when we went under contract to buy the city property. We're pleased to say we've now closed on parcel number 6, the vacant warehouse that's down here. We've owned that now for several months. We have under contract to purchase the small mower shop, the bike shop, and the residential duplex. Those were the parcels we identified as critical to making this work. We're still working because of logistics issues. It's not unusual that we would still not have a final settlement with these other 2, the Dunkin' Donuts and the Dennis parcel, though we're still working diligently to get those wrapped up in time to start construction. These were some of our workshop pictures where we had our entire team on site for 2 full days. And just a reminder of some of the things that we decided we wanted to make part of the project, which were embracing the waterfront and creating an active public park that everybody could come to, whether they lived there, even if they were just visiting Port Orange, a place that people would want to come again and again. A place for people just ties into that. We also wanted a lot of interesting retail places where people would want to come back again and again. So restaurants and coffee shops and ice cream shops and fitness places, things that draw people. And then to create an interesting vibe, a place that was innovative and people would talk about. These are some of the inspiration images that we shared that we used as we were going through the design to say, yeah, we want it to be like this. So this shows what the feel would be along the riverfront and along the sidewalks and the streets. We also put a lot of thought into the street design and the street usage. We're trying to create both Herbert Street and Halifax as streets that will be comfortably shared with pedestrians and bikes as well as automobiles. Both streets will have on-street parking on the streets, despite the fact that they're designed to also feel comfortable to pedestrians. And you might notice these are streets that have been designed in this way where they're flush and there's no elevated curb. There's actually a car sitting right here on this little street, and you can see pedestrians in the back of a bike and some of these others as well. So this is our current master plan. This isn't the concept plan, which doesn't have some of these details. But this is where we are in our design right now and on our site planning. We do have shaded out the Dunkin' Donut parcel here and the Dennis parcel because those aren't part of our official request. They are part of our plan. And so what we show is, as Tim mentioned, is an apartment community that is a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. We've created these interesting courtyards to keep from it being a monolithic wall along any of the public streets. And this also gives attractive places for pedestrians as they're walking up and down Halifax or Dunlawton. The retail spaces are all designed to be experiential, meaning places that people want to come again and again. All of them have outdoor terraces facing the riverfront so that you can have sidewalk dining and things like that. And then, of course, the most important element, and the one that drove our plan from the beginning, was the public park. We have actually pulled Halifax Drive west away from the river in order to create a wider riverfront than is there today. In fact, if you go down there, you'll see it's actually quite narrow now. And so that's made room. We still had to tie into Dunlawton over here, so it narrows as you come to the right side. We've got a long park that's over 1,000 feet linearly speaking, with an active or urban portion of the park and an organic or more relaxed portion of the park. The urban portion of the park is the place where we would close the street for festivals like an arts festival or a music event or things like that. We plan to program the park so that there's something going on almost every day. Yoga classes in the morning, things like that, so that's a place that the public is invited to come regularly. The lower half or the south half of the park that's more organic, we're saving some of the trees in that area. We're creating little natural pathways that allow people to move among some vegetation and more natural feeling spaces, as well as providing a paddleboard kayak launch and a marina. I don't know why that went backward, but here we go. So these are some of the details. Tim mentioned we have an amphitheater that's here with public restrooms, a flex lawn that could be a place where you come and throw your dog a frisbee one day. It could be a place for a music event the next day. We've got numerous places for seating, sitting along the repaired seawall, an outdoor bar, restaurant space here, and even a place for a food truck. We've got multiple places for food trucks, but one that's right there on the park. And then we're even creating some walkways into the FDOT area here that they've given us permission, given the city permission to use. Tim mentioned the walkway that continues through the property to the north and to the city park. It's a minimum of 8 feet wide, though at places it widens out and then it narrows back to make it more interesting. There's places where you can go one direction and walk along the riverfront and then another and just walk along the sidewalk. And so we've tried to create a really interesting walking experience. All of the streets, Halifax, Herbert, and our new street that we're proposing that comes along the parking garage have sidewalks, street trees, street lights, things that make streets attractive. This is a slide that we put in here mainly because the buildings back here aren't our current design, but it does show how large this park is and what it would look like from the waterfront. This is our current design. I think you've seen some of these slides before. We're proposing for the multifamily building to be 8 stories as it faces the river, 6 stories as it faces Ridgewood. And again, you can see how the movement in and out for the courtyards and the different architecture as the building goes from one end to the other makes it a very interesting facade. And then there's retail spaces back here and that continue on to the north past here. This is the portion of the building that's down close to Dunlawton, which is in one architectural style. This is the end that's up where the retail is, which is yet another architectural style, and the building facing Ridgewood would be third architectural style, all laid out in the master development agreement. This is where the entrance to the parking garage would be for pedestrians. So there'd be this enormous opening with an inviting sidewalk that comes out to Halifax. The retail space starts here and then continues on to the north, and where the intersection is with the fish restaurant property.
Charles, is the parking garage itself, is that residents only in that area, or will there
No.
be some access for public parking in that area as well?
How do I go backwards? Sorry, I went one slide too few. Too many. There you go, thank you. No, as you may remember, when we first proposed, I think we promised 90 public parking spaces in our first proposal. We have now 300 public parking spaces. That a lot of those are in the garage. The first 2 levels of the garage are all free public parking
Got it.
for people to come use the restaurants and things. And there are another 200 parking spaces either on the streets or in the parking areas behind the buildings and around the buildings.
Okay.
Very good.
Did you finish your presentation?
I think
Okay.
so.
Okay, I just want to make sure before I went up here, and you did say it would be shorter than Tim's. I don't know if it was or not, but that's okay. Scott,
I
since
don't
you
know,
opened,
no.
why don't you go ahead and continue?
So I mean, very, very similar to a lot of the design concepts that we've seen with your team and that you guys have been working on. The parking part has been from day one, you know, how's that gonna play out? And you guys have continued to improve upon. You know, being able to mask that, if that's the right word, I think is great. I think that's really an awesome
we do
design,
too.
because it's, I
You know,
mean,
we hired a very well-known parking consultant to help us do all the math for how you share parking with retail, hotel, residential, public park, and all that. And so that's been a lot of the work that we've done since we were last here in trying to get the parking right, because it's got to park well or it won't work.
I also think, you know, and this is more of a kudos for your team and our city team, that from day one, we have been incredibly adamant about what this has to mean for the public spaces and our residents who don't necessarily live down there. And you guys have just continued to build and build upon that, and I think you guys have really grasped how serious we were about that and how much we wanted that access for all of our community to the water, and moving the street back westward to even make more space right along the water that wasn't even something that I ever even thought of or could be done, and to see that your design team recognized that.
It's our landscape architect.
Yeah, I mean,
back there,
that's
planner,
that's excellent. That's excellent, and that's the kind of stuff that we were hoping. At least I know I was hoping that I'd be able to see is that how do we create more of an opportunity for our residents to enjoy the waterways in the area and stuff like that. So there's a lot of really nice things to see there. I appreciate the
Thanks,
design.
we're excited about it
You
too.
definitely delivered there. Good. Let's hop over this side. Reed?
Man, it's very exciting to see. It's always good to see you, Charles. Scott just hammered it home. You know, there's a shared vision that we have discussed with council about what we want that front to be, and the complexity of the design is something that I appreciate, because to me there's nothing less attractive than a square, rectangular, cookie cutter building with some docks hanging off of it. You know, to me, you look at that and it looks like a very complex, unique project. It looks like somewhere I'd want to go hang out with my family. You know,
Even iconic.
yeah, absolutely. It's picturesque, as they say. So, I just have one question. This is more of a curiosity than anything. So the first 2 levels are going to be parking for public, and that's how we got to 300 spaces. Does that mean residents will be like 3rd floor and higher on the parking garage?
Correct.
So then my question would just be, will they have their own access point that takes them straight to the 3rd, or will they have to go through the 1st and 2nd level to get to their
They're-
apartments?
They will, the entrance is a shared entrance, but they will have a way to quickly get to the
Go
3rd
straight.
level.
They
And then there'll be a control gate that stops anybody else from going there, because the draw for them to go there is that it's
That was
more
my thought
secure.
when you said it. I'm like,
They'll have a way of keeping you out.
well, who said I'm not going to move in? Hey, all right. But no, like my thought was if I'm a resident, I don't know that I want to make my rounds around the first, second,
Right.
just to get into my apartment. You know what I mean?
I understand.
But otherwise, I love it, man. I just can't wait to see the day that we put shovels in the dirt.
You and me both.
Tracy?
It's beautiful. I mean, conceptually, for what it's going to do to the city, I think downtown area is going to be iconic, and it's going to allow the rest of the area down there to perform even better. It's going to be a draw, and I think that's one of the things that we look at. You know, how many of us have actually drove up and down US 1 from here to Ormond Beach and seen what has happened over the last 30, 40 years to the areas, and everything on the coastline of that area has decayed. And I see project after project after project, not to ding different cities, that have been poured in millions of dollars of the money, and it hasn't changed. Moving to Port Orange and hearing about Riverwalk in the 90s was, okay, when's it going to happen? To be up here and to be able to see it actually as a vision now is just outstanding. And I think it's going to change the way Dunlawton Avenue and US 1 is joining in, and you're going to see as the buildings down there change over time, you're going to see where cities don't have to pay to try to redevelop areas, because you're going to have an icon down there that people want to be drawn to have their businesses. So it will stop the decay of areas of older sections of cities to be brought and vitalized back to life. So I'm waiting. This is going to be good.
Well, thank you for saying that, and Councilmember Foley knows this. We've been involved in a lot of projects like that we think of as transformational, and I could take you to live examples of places where there was nothing there, and there was a lead project that had vision and good planning, and all of those areas have now blossomed, and there's the Gulch in Nashville being off
Was
the
there
charts
last week.
successful, and it's fun to be involved in those and be a part of it, like we all will be.
Drew?
Charles, well done. I like what I'm seeing. You know, we had our meetings and we talked about this, and it's kind of exciting to see the concept, but it's going to be more exciting to see the finished product,
It
of
sure
course.
will.
And you mentioned the word transformational, and it certainly is going to do that to that area. I've been here a long time. We moved to Florida or Port Orange in '75, and I've seen all that stuff that has, been there and gone, and was that corner. It's just going to change it for the better, and into the future. So I just can't wait to see it. Super excited for it, and 4 years. Hopefully it can happen a little quicker, but I
We hope
realize
so too. That's our goal.
it takes time to secure everything and get it all done. So just great job, meeting the vision and taking this on and doing this. Love it.
Go ahead, Scott.
Charles, if the stars were all aligned, right, everything was perfect, how quickly could that project be built? I know we're creating a time frame, but like realistically, how quickly could a project like that be built?
The fastest would be 26 months probably. And that's what we'd want to do.
Yeah.
The 4 years, part of that is the permitting
Sure.
review time and
Yeah.
all that, so you have to build that in. And so the purpose of the 4 years is just to put
Yeah,
some
sure.
cushions in there.
Yeah.
I could tell you war stories from the pandemic and
Yeah.
aftermath of things that nobody expected, and so
Sure.
just to help for that.
It's interesting to know. There are some things that, we've seen the glitter, the potential. That's the goal that we're going to get, but we have a chance to be winners before we even break ground. You think about right now, the last 30 years of investment in that CRA, we're paying $500,000 in debt service every year out of our general fund. We sell, as soon as we close on this property, that debt service goes away. That's $500,000 that goes back into the general fund that we're able to invest in public safety and other things that we don't, that is terrific. The debt itself goes away. The property itself comes back on the tax rolls. Most of that's been off the tax rolls for a couple dozen years. There's more revenue in that, just from that standpoint. And then that revenue allows us in the CRA to invest in other things. We talked last meeting about the Down Under District and what we have planned there, and almost doubling the amount of parking and the aesthetics, and that just makes everything blossom up and down. There's a US 1 in every town on the East Coast. It runs from Miami to Maine. And reinventing ourselves and being able to take the resources from this reinvention and be able to, the rising tide lifts all boats analogy that we keep talking about. The improvements we want to do in the older part of town take dollars. And without socking it to the taxpayers, this is how we reinvest in ourselves, and this is how we attract other investment. Other businesses will want to be there, and those businesses will serve our residents. Instead of having, and when you have businesses that serve residents in a specific area, that shortens trips on the road. So there are a lot of benefits that go beyond just what we see, that I'm looking forward to as well. So I just want to kind of set the tone for that. And Charles, I appreciate you coming up here and giving us all the 411. With that, before we continue with other comments, I want to give the public a chance to speak. Does anyone here want to comment? There being none, you must have done a pretty good job, Charles, because it comes back to council. Final comments or questions? Tracy?
I'm good.
Reed?
All good.
Scott?
What's 411 mean? I'm not as old as you.
Okay. There was a day when phone numbers were shorter. Don't worry about it. Drew?
Nothing further.
Okay. With that, we have a motion and a second on the floor for the CRA. That motion being for to recommend approval of item C3, ordinance number 2023-10, the River Yard Master Development Agreement and Conceptual Master Plan, subject to the council approval of the right-of-way vacation of portions of Halifax Drive and Herbert Street, and we'll be doing that on September 5th on that night's agenda, and authorizing the CRA chair and the agency clerk to execute all the necessary documents. Mr. Foley, Chairman, you have a motion and a second on the floor. You want to call the roll for the CRA?
Yep, we do have a motion. We have a second. And since there's no further discussion, can we call the roll, please?
Chairman Foley,
Yes.
Tracy Grubbs,
Yes.
Drew Bastian,
Yes.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Tom Burnett.
Yes. Wanna
All
announce
right,
the vote?
5-0.
5-0, okay. This is the duality of this working, and thus the confusion of working as both the CRA and the City Council at the same time. So now I'm going to call for a vote on the next motion, which is the same motion, to approve item C3, the ordinance of number 2023-10, the River Yard Master Development Agreement and Conceptual Development Plan, subject to the approval of the right-of-way of vacation of a portion of Halifax Drive and Herbert Street on September 5th, 2023, that agenda, and will authorize the mayor and the city clerk to execute all city documents. On behalf of the council, please call the roll.
Councilman Grubbs,
Yes.
Councilman Bastian,
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Foley,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. And on behalf of the CRA, Chairman Foley, we call the vote on the motion to approve the C5 temporary construction easements for parcels owned by the CRA and jointly owned by the city, subject to the approval of ordinance 2023-10, and authorize the chair and agency clerk to execute all documents.
Yes. Will the clerk call the roll?
Chairman Foley,
Yes.
Tracy Grubbs,
Yes.
Drew Bastian,
Yes.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Tom Burnett.
Yes.
All right, that's 5-0.
And council will vote on that motion at that September meeting on September 5th. That concludes the portion of the meeting for the CRA. We return to the council portion of the meeting. And now we get to hit the gas here a little bit. Public comments on the consent agenda. There being none, can I have a motion for approval for the agenda for the evening?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion for the approval of the agenda for the evening. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
With that, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 6 through 9.
Move to approve consent items 6 through 9.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second, to approve items 6 through 9 on consent. Call the roll.
Councilman Grubbs,
Yes.
Councilman Bastian,
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Foley,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, consent agenda approved. Item 10, First Step Shelter presentation. Ms. Victoria Fallberg. And the PowerPoint is in the agenda packet, so we will be seeing what we got to preview already. Just while you're setting up to preview this, I have been added to as a on the board of directors to the First Step Shelter, and with that, I requested that the director of the shelter come give an update on what's going on with the shelter, as the city of Port Orange is a financial contributor, and in that regard, we have a fiduciary duty to make sure that we're getting our money's worth, more than just simply being Pottinger compliant. But I also thought from a community interest standpoint, a lot of people would like to know exactly what the shelter's doing and the progress that it's made, and it's come a long way. You know, at this point, I need to shut up and let you tell the story.
Yeah, so only the last 2 board meetings, Mayor Burnett has been part of our board of directors. He took Chase Tremont's place, so we're sad to, have Chase leave, but we're really happy to have Mayor Burnett. So I'm Victoria Fallberg. I'm the executive director over at the shelter, and I've been there since we opened. So these are just some photos. I don't know how many people have actually been there. So this is the exterior of the building. We added the guard shack, which is the entrance now, and then off on the side where you see there's like a tented fence, a covered fence, that's our safe zone. This is the men's dorm. This is our big space in the middle where we have our cafeteria and all of our activities occur. Our kitchen. We serve 3 meals a day. Our current capacity is around 70 right now, so we make a lot of food. This is the pavilion that we use for the safe zone. When it is below 50 degrees, we actually bring people inside, and when it's as hot as it is right now, we also bring people inside. So we have 3 programs now at the shelter. We have the regular shelter program, which we call the Health and Housing Program. We have the Roseanne Tornator Safe Zone, which opened about a year after the shelter opened. And then about a year ago, we initiated the Eastern Volusia Outreach Team. So I'll be speaking just a little bit more about those as we go on. The average age, so our residents are elderly, and there's about 40% female, about 65% are white, 35% black. About 85 to 90% have some kind of a psychiatric or medical condition, and the average length of stay is about 61 days. Now, a lot of people stay more than that. We have a policy that if a person is doing everything we've asked them to do to work our program, and through no fault of their own, we haven't been able to find them housing yet, then they're allowed to stay. Because what we don't want to do is just stick people back out on the street. Sure. There is certainly a good contingent of people who come in, they stay for a short while, and then they make their own decision that they're not going to work the program and they're going to leave. So some of the medical concerns, as I already mentioned, are the drug and alcohol addictions. About 65% have a major mental illness, and some of them have alcohol or drug addictions and mental illness. There's also an awful lot of physical conditions, chronic disorders such as hypertension, seizure disorders, diabetes, asthma. I was surprised. We have probably 1 person every other week who has a seizure at the shelter. We have an ambulance out there probably 3 times a week, just because it's a very sick population. We've all had to learn how to do Narcan. We've all had to learn how to do just different aspects of assessing people. because when they come into us, as I said, they're elderly, but they've also been, so we serve the chronically homeless population, the individuals. We don't serve families at our shelter. So with that population of people, they've often been off and on homeless for decades. And some of them come to us and they have very severe illnesses. We often get people, for example, with cancer, and they spend the last part of their life before hospice at our shelter. We just had somebody last Friday that moved from the shelter into hospice. And actually, they come out here to the hospice in Port Orange through Halifax Health when they come to hospice. As long as people are able to give themselves a shower, to feed themselves, and to use the toilet on their own, we'll take them into our shelter. So the way that our housing program works is we have to make sure that everybody has an identification. We do get people who come in and they don't have an ID at all, and so we have to go back and figure out where they actually were born and get a birth certificate and go from there, because they're not able to access any other services or employment or housing or anything if they don't have identification. We also, initially when they first come in, we do an assessment of their health situation, and from there we develop a treatment plan just with their health. We do have a nurse who is on staff 40 hours a week, and we have a CNA who's going to be joining us soon to work part-time about 30 hours a week. And it's been really fortunate to have the nurse on site because of the many physical disabilities that people have. So from their health, we also look at their mental health, and if a person needs medication, then we can send them over across the street to SMA and get them on the medication that they need, because if a person is hallucinating or not mentally stable, they can't work the program appropriately. The next thing we do is we look at what their income situation is. A lot of people there are disabled. If they're disabled and they need disability, we will apply for that. If they're elderly and we can get them Social Security, we apply for that. If they can work, we help them work. We have computer stations. We teach them computer skills. We teach them how to do a job search. We have transportation. We take them to their first job. We take them to their job interviews, and once they have a job, we're on the bus line, so we get them transportation on the bus to do it regularly. Employment is very important, and then once we have them stably earning income is when we find them housing. So as of the end of last month, we've served a total, this is since we opened, 977 people, which this month of August, we should hit 1,000. It's a kind of a milestone for us. We've served over 200,000 meals. We have 504 residents that we've housed, which is 52%, which is pretty good for the population that we serve. Actually, it's really good for the population we serve. And after 2 years, HUD will begin to let us know how many of those people we put into housing are still in housing. We have to use a national database for everybody who comes in. Everybody in the whole United States who serves the homeless population, no matter what service you provide, you have to use the HUD database. And that way, HUD is able to track people across the country, and they're also able to see what services they're using and how frequently. So when we put somebody into housing, that goes into the database. If they begin to search for other services, then that gets flagged by HUD, because they shouldn't be searching for any more services once we put them into housing, because we've helped them get all their needs met. So our percentage right now is at 90%, which is like...
I was waiting for you to get
Yeah,
to the amazing
I almost
statistic.
forgot. That's the really good
because
part.
That to me is incredible.
Yeah, I couldn't, when they told us, I was kind of overwhelmed, because it's, I was going to be happy if it was around 60%. Anyway, so I don't need to go through all these numbers. And I did actually leave all of you. This is our impact report just from 2022, just from last year, which I handed out. And this data here shows for all of the years since we've been open. So if you want more of a snapshot of what we did in a year. But every year is different, because every year we have really dramatically increased the number of residents served. So we started, when the shelter opened, we had 40 people daily. And then I raised it to 50 the following year, 60 the following year. This year, our daily capacity is up to 70. So anyway, those are just some of the many services that we provide. Some of the other services we provide are all of these, and I just want to focus a little bit on our life skills course. So the residents at our shelter get 9 hours a week of classroom learning on life skills. So this includes health, it's like health, it's like exercise and nutrition and those kind of things. It's like how to have a budget. And I'm not talking about like finances, I'm talking about how much money do you need to pay your rent every month. If you have food stamps, how much money is left that you need for food, and then what do you need for transportation? It's like very, very basic. But we go through that both in the classroom, and then we help people individually. Part of what they have to do is develop their own budget for their own lifestyle before they can go into housing. We also teach them soft skills for jobs, because a lot of them, they end up working at places like Walmart or Whole Foods. Sometimes they're in warehouses, but often they're directly with customers. And so they need to be able to respond appropriately in those kind of situations. And if you've been living in the bushes for a long time, you're not as up on those skills as you need to be. So that's a really important part of our program. They get 9 hours a week in the classroom, and then they get like 30 hours a week of hands-on, of just, we have them learn how to do laundry. So we have a laundromat there. They actually have to use money in order to do it as if they were at a laundromat, and just everything like that. There's chores they have to do, dishes, things like that. So those are just some of the things that we do at the shelter. So we have a lot of community partners. Halifax and Advent actually donate the money for our nurse that we have at our health unit, and that's been, really important to us. We work with the public health department during COVID. They came in regularly and helped us with testing, or they would give us testing materials. They also do HIV testing for us. They come in and give a flu shot every year, so they've been a great partner. We have AA coming to the shelter 4 times a week. We work very closely with the VA, and I have another slide on it, but 1 out of every 8 residents this year is a veteran. Last year it was 1 out of every 9. So, but we have a very close partnership with them. Then some of the others are the places we go for medical health or mental health care. And we just work with people all the time in the community. So here's my little slide on veterans. So 1 out of every 8 of our residents, like I said, is a veteran. So some of our other programs, as I mentioned, the Roseanne Tornator Safe Zone, which is what makes everybody Pottinger compliant. This is only for law enforcement. So nobody can make a referral to the safe zone except local law enforcement in our participating cities. That's it. And it's to take the place, like if a person is on the street, a minor ordinance violation, like trespassing or loitering in the park after dark or something like that, then officers have the option of bringing them to the safe zone, or they have the discretion of doing other things too, like arresting them or asking them to walk away. So that's up to them. But we regularly do get people in the safe zone. Once they're in our safe zone, we will ask them if they want to come in and participate in the shelter program. So we recently started, last year, the Eastern Volusia Outreach Team. We kind of had a setback with those 2 hurricanes, but it's up and going again, and I left you this brochure to talk about this. So this is a program actually for all the residents in Port Orange. If they see someone on the street and they feel like the person might need a shelter, they can give us a call on our helpline, which is 386-999-HELP. So all your businesses, anybody in Port Orange can call our helpline, and we have a team that's a Volusia Sheriff's deputy and one of my staff people. And as soon as we can make the arrangements, they will come out and visit that person and offer them to come up to the shelter. So that's how that program works. And then the other thing we do is we function as a cold weather shelter and a hurricane shelter for the county. So they didn't need us for Hurricane Ian. They used the Ocean Center and the fairgrounds. But for Hurricane Nicole, we became the shelter for the homeless people that weren't in a shelter at that time. And then for the cold weather shelter, we do that as well. So this is just some of the changes that we made through 2022. The data is based on a calendar year rather than fiscal year, so I don't have anything up there for 2023 because you can't compare a half a year with a whole year. So, but as you can see, we have worked really hard to increase our outcomes every year. So Port Orange numbers. So we have averaged 23 people a year in the safe zone for Port Orange. We've had 11 total shelter referrals from law enforcement from Port Orange, with 5 so far this year in the first 7 months. So that seems to be increasing. And then over the last year, we've had about 60 additional shelter residents from Port Orange, and they generally come to us from the jail, from the hospital, or from some other way. It's hard to know for sure really where people come from because they kind of like come from all over and live kind of all over. So we do our best. I don't like to publish the number really because it's also based on report of the people. So, but that's about what we're doing. Let's see. That's it. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Let me just say that while the city of Port Orange and a number of our municipalities are financial supporters, and I think that I'd love us to see us do more, but the shelter is primarily supported by private businesses and individuals who see that it is easier on your conscience to throw $5 at a panhandler on a corner. You take that $5 and First Step or Hope Place or any number of these organizations can take those dollars and make them go so much further to do so much more, and those dollars aren't going to support their bad habits and perpetuate a problem. So the challenge I would have is for everybody who has that heart that wants to help that person, this is the way to go. And Wayne, I would like us to look at a campaign to share this stuff on social media so that, I know you're looking at Mike and he's nodding, so that we can help get the word out that we can make a difference, not just for Port Orange, but all of East Volusia here, by supporting the First Step Shelter. But Council, I'm going to shut up here, which is not easy for me to do, and see if you guys have any questions. Drew?
No, I don't have anything. I mean, she gave a great presentation with a lot of information, so appreciate it.
Scott?
So since the inception of this, with one of the big things with us getting involved with this as a city was to give our law enforcement folks some tools out there to help when they come across homeless individuals. Roughly since the inception of the program, our folks have come across about 400, and only 33 have been able to be eligible and admitted into the shelter itself. 58 of them were not eligible. What's the number one reason why somebody who our folks come across who may want to go in are being rejected? Is that being tracked, and is there room somewhere down the road for that to be improved?
There's the only reasons anybody would be rejected into the shelter program is if they were hallucinating or so mentally unstable that they wouldn't be able to actually come in and live in an environment where they're with a lot of other people. If they're not able to feed themselves, bathe themselves, or use the toilet, or get up and down from their bed, or if they have a crime, if they're a sexual predator, or if they've had a recent violent felony. So those numbers are a complete surprise to me, and I think that it would be really important for your law enforcement to share with me immediately if something like that happens, because I'm not aware of any of that.
So we asked the city manager's office to provide that information actually gets back to us weekly in a city manager's report. So we have those numbers now. Like you mentioned, I get that some of those folks who will end up from the shelter came from the jail or came from a hospital, came from another source, and cited Port Orange as their location, maybe that they were last at. But yeah, our city manager's office can definitely provide that. I'm just kind of curious, because when I see the reports and I see how many times our officers come across folks, and I get it's got to be a voluntary thing. A lot of them just don't want to go. We knew that would be kind of the case, and I understand that. But to see how many said, yeah, I want to go, but then didn't meet the criteria to go. I'd just like to kind of better
Well-
understand. And what you're saying does make sense. I get that. If they're, heavily under the influence, they're hallucinating, they're some of those other, I get that. That's not the place. I just was curious what those statistics look like on y'all's end as to why people may not be eligible to come.
Right, so I think I should probably get together with your city manager and try to understand that a little bit better, because we really, we bring in people, it's just, it's like really a big surprise to me that would be like that, because there is eligibility, but it's so, it's just so easy to get into our shelter.
Yeah, and it's a great facility. I mean, it's a beautiful facility, and it was something that Volusia County as a whole needed tremendously. And I think a lot of residents, as well as our law enforcement professionals out there on the street, they wanted more people to want to go there. I mean, we knew that there would be a certain percentage that just says, hey, that's not what I want to do. I want to live like I'm living, and I just want to do my thing and be left alone. And I get that too, but I think understanding maybe the rejection rates, or really that word, the non-qualifying rate. What are those things? And looking at those.
So I recently
we
had
move
a
forward.
meeting with all of the police chiefs from all of our participating cities, and so I'd already made this decision before the meeting, but it was after conversations with some of the other police chiefs, and we made a decision that, so when they were, I don't even know how they were rejected. So I would need to understand that, because as long as they meet that criteria that I told you, the officers can give them a referral and just send them up to the shelter, just send them up. So we've eliminated any kind of notifying us in advance or anything like that. So, I just would have to have a better understanding.
It's an evolutionary
Yeah.
process, and it's improved. And that also doesn't account for the people that go to the shelter and say, no, that's not for me.
Right.
Right.
There's a lot of that as well.
Yeah, so anyway, we'll be in touch, because we don't want to turn down people. Our goal, seriously, our mission is to
Sure.
stop homelessness and put people into
Yeah.
housing and get them off the street.
And I completely get,
Piece of the equation.
by design, there are qualifications because of just how the shelter is designed and what the folks that are there are equipped to handle and do. So I know that not 100% of everybody's going to be.
The most rejection is because people aren't able to use the toilet. And
Yeah.
we have one nurse on staff, but that's not her job
Yeah.
we're not an ALF.
Sure.
And that's the number one reason why we might say no, because
Got it.
the other reasons happen, but they're not nearly as frequent as just, people need a higher standard of care
Yeah.
than what the shelter can provide. So anyway, I'm sorry to hear that, but we'll look into it.
Okay.
We'll figure it out. You good?
That's it.
Reed, you got anything?
Just super quick, thank you for coming and presenting. In the time I've been on council, I think this is the first time we've had you in front of us. Obviously, we have our liaison, but appreciate you taking the time to do it, and thank you for what you do for the community.
Thanks.
I figured you'd rather hear from her than hear from me anyway.
I hear from you every meeting.
That's right. Tracy?
So I only have one question, and that's dealing with, you got 1 in 8 as a veteran, is what you're stating.
Pull that microphone up a little closer. There you go.
That better?
Say thanks, Coach.
And if 1 in 8 is a veteran, and we just had this meeting dealing with Barracks of Hope,
Yeah.
how many of them is being transferred over to other programs to try to alleviate spacing for your side, so they're with other veterans? Do you do that? Do
So the Barracks of Hope only has space for 20 people.
you- Okay.
And so they're the government-funded agency.
Mhm.
So from the federal government, they're like with the VA. So we are kind of the overflow is what we are for the
Okay.
VA. So they would send them first to Barracks of Hope. But if there's no space at Barracks of Hope, then they send them to us.
Okay. Yeah, just,
Good question.
you see the different shelters and you don't know where people are landing, are they where they're supposed to be to get the best help? We don't want them going to some place and, as Scott says, having them put to the side. We want them to be where they can get the most help possible.
Right.
So that's why the question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Yeah, but I mean, as you can see, we get a lot of veterans,
Correct.
and we work really hard with them, and actually, there's so many more services and housing vouchers available for veterans that in some ways, it's like when we get to work with the veterans, it's easier for our team.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Tracy, one of the things I've seen, because I've also been on the Salvation Army Advisory Board for, well, it has been 20 years now, that a lot of these agencies, they all talk to each other. It's amazing how much they talk to each other trying to communicate and get
Yeah.
people help when they can't do it or and the like.
Yeah,
It's
there's
really a wonderful
There's a
thing.
lot of overlap.
Yeah, there is.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. I
Well,
appreciate that.
It's my pleasure. It really is, and
Well,
thank you
hopefully
so much.
we learned a thing or two, and then we can help get the word out as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but really, we're very grateful for Port Orange's support, so thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
That brings us to public participation non-agenda. I saw you collecting cards, so there's got to be a few, right? 3 minutes per person. And Jordan Snipes is first. You're not going to come up? I thought y'all were going to have us back. So you're going to have us back from back there. Okay. I see how this works.
Man, I didn't even recognize you, Jordan.
Oh, you're good, sir.
You've definitely changed your look a little bit.
All right, good evening, all. My name is Jordan Snipes. I'm a retired Army veteran. I'm hosting a Veterans Mental Health Walk and teamed up with Mission 22, which is a program that provides mental health services for veterans. We're doing our walk in September. It's throughout 3 cities, to include Port Orange as well. We're starting on September 16th at 07 a.m. in the American Legion in Edgewater, and we'll be ending at First Turn in Port Orange. We will be having about 6 to 8 police agencies joining in and escorting us throughout the way. The route will be northbound on US 1 all the way to Nova, US 1 to Nova to Dunlawton, and then Dunlawton to Isabella Avenue, Isabella Avenue to Commonwealth, Commonwealth back to First Turn. We won't be blocking any traffic lights or anything like that during the time. The police are going to stop us and then wait for the traffic light to turn green, and we'll continue on. My goal with this event is to bring first responders and veterans together and show a support system for those who need it and spread awareness on how big this issue has become in our community for military and first responders on mental health crisis. If anyone's got any questions or anything like that, I'm going to stand by for the end of the meeting, and they can feel free to ask or see if they want to be a part of any of this events. We did have the Edgewater. We put it out to them. They did ask if they were allowed to share it on their social media. So I sent them the flyers. I don't know if the same for you guys. And some of their respective people want to walk through Edgewater. So that is more welcome for any of you guys too. If you guys want to join in Port Orange, you guys are more than welcome.
Jordan, continue to send us, I'm sorry, are we done?
Nope, yes sir.
I was going to say, please continue to send all of us, all of our emails are on the website and everything. Send us the information on the event. I'm certainly happy to promote it on my personal social media pages and
Yes, sir.
help
Yeah.
get the word out. I think it's an incredible cause. It's something that probably doesn't get enough recognition and thought. And I think what you're doing is awesome. I mean, I think
Yes,
it's
sir.
great to promote the awareness and do that. So I applaud you for that for sure.
Yes sir, thank you.
Appreciate you. Go ahead and hang out.
Thank you sir.
Well done.
They're going to make you look better anyway. The next 5 are all here on a similar topic, so what I want to do is go ahead and allow all 5 of you to have your time, since it's a similar topic. And then at the end of that, we go to council comments. I'm going to ask the city manager to report and address the concerns. So let me start with Nancy Moore Fabian. And then after that, Stephen Storms will be next. And when you come up, just tell us who you are and tell us what's on your mind.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Nancy Moore Fabian, and I have been in front of the council before. It wasn't you gentlemen, but it was the same topic. And I'm just here to tell you my story. I moved into Sleepy Hollow subdivision in 2008 with my family. This past year, my house had 4 feet of water in it. I have 3 drains at the corner of Terrytown and Horseman Drive, and you would think that there would be no way for water to get in my home. Those drains are not working. There is something wrong. We came to y'all before, and y'all had an engineer, not you gentlemen, but the board.
Yes,
And they had an engineer, and he was going to fix the problem. Well, he dug a hole. Well, if you dig a hole in Florida, guess what's going to happen?
A little water.
It's going to fill up with water. That was not the answer. I'm just here pleading with y'all. Please do something. My home is still under construction. I am out of my home today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
And Stephen Storms is up. After that, Anita Orsini.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Storms, 749 Horseman Drive, Sleepy Hollow neighborhood. My wife and I retired here in October 2021. We enjoy living here and appreciate all that the city does for us. Last summer we were concerned about the hurricane readiness of the ditch behind our house. We realized that much of the runoff from the Publix grocery store strip mall went through this ditch. On July 25 last year, my wife contacted Public Works, and 2 men came the next day and talked to us. We appreciated that quick response to our concern. Shortly after that, a machine showed up and the ditch cleanout began. Over a week or two, the machine broke down 3 times. I was there when the mechanic told the operator that the machine would need to be sent to Orlando for repairs. On September 22, 6 days before Eon showed up, we received this email from Public Works. Started to clean with Menzie, but equipment broke down. We will be coming back after hurricane season to do a larger project involving reconstruction of entire ditch. Public Works. End of quote. September 28, our house flooded for the first time since it was built in 1978. We are disappointed to realize that it is August 15, 2023, and our ditch has not been cleaned or reconstructed. Last year, the water in the ditch flowed freely. Now it is stagnant and the mosquitoes are much worse. According to a recent communication, our ditch is scheduled to be cleaned in the next 30 to 60 days. In 60 days, the height of the hurricane season for 2023 will be passed. I encourage you to include Sleepy Hollow in your plans for Port Orange flood control.
Thank you.
And Anita Orsini, and after that, Rosemarie Moody. And if I hurt your names a little bit, forgive me.
You did well. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Councilman. My name is Anita Orsini. I have lived on Horseman Drive in Sleepy Hollow since 1987. There's a storm drain in front of my house that drains directly into the ditch behind my house. That ditch runs the length of the north side of Horseman Drive and separates my property from Alan Green's property along Jackson Street, with Publix at the west end. In the past, the ditch was dredged yearly to keep the water flowing steadily eastward. Now the water is stagnant. In '04, we had 3 hurricanes. Francis was a huge rain event, and my home did not flood. In about 2012, new pipes and a new pond were installed on the east side of Sleepy Hollow. The Horseman ditch was not improved at all. Since then, in 2014, my home flooded, and that was not a hurricane. During Ian, my home took on 2 feet of water. Approximately 80 homes in Sleepy Hollow flooded with Hurricane Ian. I am fortunate to have had FEMA flood insurance, but many of my neighbors, especially the elderly, cannot afford it. Sleepy Hollow is not considered a flood zone, so many residents did not think they needed the insurance. We have been told since 2016 that the dredging equipment is under repair and that the city does not have access to the ditch. How long does it take to repair the equipment, and why cannot it be rented somewhere at another district? We were recently told that now access has been found, but why did it take so long? The storm drain out in front of my house always is full of water, and the street floods with regular rain. The storm water from Publix drains into the Horseman ditch. Why? Why can't Publix be responsible for their own stormwater? I see new development all around us, which means more concrete, more water. The recently sold tract on Nova, south of Publix, is destined to be another strip center with more concrete and more water to go where? What if the Greens property is developed? Where will that water go? We feel that the city should resolve the problems of the existing neighborhoods before new development is approved. Hurricane Ian and the fear of another flood have impacted the health of Sleepy Hollow residents as well. Some are losing weight, hair, having strokes, and increased anxiety and depression because of their stress. Many of us are going into debt for the first time because of all of the expenses. In closing, we are merely asking the city to do the right thing. We have been very patient. Everyone cannot continue to just hope and pray that it will not happen again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
I would like to thank Brett Matter, Robin Fenwick, and Johnny Young for their help.
Thank you.
And then we got Rosemarie Moody, followed by Joe Knott. Wayne, I hope you're taking good notes over there.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rose Moody. I have lived in Sleepy Hollow since 1983, and I've seen it flood several times. I've also been at city council meetings where they've talked about dredging, and then engineer has said you can't dredge it anymore. So this has been an ongoing problem for years. I've also noticed over the years when we do flood, it quickly goes down, it seems, when the pumps are turned on. During Ian, I was told by a resident back in Woodlake that the city was trying to catch somebody back in Woodlake that kept turning the pump off. And that city person said, we can't say for sure, but we kind of feel like that didn't help Sleepy Hollow. Like I said, I wasn't affected, but many of my neighbors have been. This has been an ongoing problem for the residents of Sleepy Hollow. And September 4th through the 8th, WESH is already saying that that's going to be another major event. I don't know how much you follow them, but they follow the recycling pattern that starts up in the fall, and the same system that brought us Nicole is recycling again. And I can tell by the meteorologists that they are very concerned that with the warm waters in the ocean and everything, that this could be another big event for us. So please do something for Sleepy Hollow. We've been there since '78, and I think we deserve some attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Joe Knott.
Mr. Mayor, Council. My name's Joe Knott. I live at 760 Terrytown Trail in the Sleepy Hollow subdivision. In this past year, I'm just going to be real brief. The families in our area were flooded. Half of Sleepy Hollow was flooded. And as far as, why, we're trying to figure out what can be done. Are there any plans in the future, the near future, for any type of new pumping stations? So that's briefly all I need to know. Just everybody else has kind of said what we all are thinking. But there are a lot of folks there that didn't have flood insurance because we were in a no flood zone. Mm-hmm. And that's been a real drain on our finances. Yep. So thank you, and we hope we can do something about it. Thank you.
Tracy, that was all of them?
Yes.
Okay. Go to council comments. The one tough thing about a no flood zone is there's really no such thing. It's an X zone, which means it's the least likely to flood. But when you have a rainstorm that produced what Francis produced in 48 hours, and this did it in 24 hours, and multiply that times 1.5, and then you add the winds of Charlie, we had 5 very hard-hit neighborhoods. We actually had 1,000 flood victims in the city. And I pray that, I know we'll have more hurricanes. I mean, that's just the nature of things. I've never seen the like of this, and I hope we never do again. But we're doing an awful lot. Wayne, I'm going to give you a chance, if you don't mind, to address you and staff to talk about some of the things that we have been working on. And on the way out, there's actually, we have, council recently updated our stormwater master plan, and we have 7 large projects. There's on the board outside, you can take a look at that. Because one thing that is hard is that, you know, you talk about neighborhood issues, but you're also affected by what's going on upstream. And I saw it in Sugar Forest. There's no outfall for the Nova Canal in Daytona Beach. It's hard enough handling 24 inches of rain in 24 hours here, but all that water's flowing at us to add to what we have, and it's supposed to go into Rose Bay, and in 24 hours the tide changed 4 times. Then you have a king tide. There are a lot of things that are running against us, and thus some of those projects that we're talking about, and you can see those on the board. Those are not quick fixes. They're very expensive, but we're already working on them. But as far as some of the neighborhood issues, Wayne, I'll give you a chance to kind of report and update us on what's going on with those things.
To start with the broad overview that you started with on the scale and devastation from Ian, we did pull, going all the way back to Francis in '04, all the major rain events we had between those, the rain events in 9 and 14, and then the hurricanes Matthew, Irma, Ian, and Nicole. And if you look at the number of homes that were impacted by water in those, so Francis prior to Ian was the worst we'd had, a little under 300 homes flooded. In all the rest of the storms, they were under 100, in most cases less than 50, over 1,000 in Ian, as you said. So the impact of that storm was devastating. We have thousands of homes that were built in Port Orange prior to current stormwater standards. And most of the east side of town was built prior to that. And so it's a big challenge to come back and retrofit a built-out area that's flat and low-lying with no pond. So Sleepy Hollow is one of those neighborhoods that has no stormwater ponds in it when it was built, and it was built we've learned a lot over the years, and just like we used to build houses with asbestos in it and lead in the pipes, we don't do that anymore. We build roofs that hold wind better. We build neighborhoods now that do a better job of holding rainwater from hurricanes. But our old neighborhoods weren't built to those standards, and so improvements need to be made in those areas. And so something of the scale of an Ian is a tremendous thing to do, and it's very hard in an older low-lying area. And our drainage system is substantially gravity oriented, and that most of the ponds, they go downhill to a pond and then outfall and then use gravity down the canals into tidally influenced bays. And as the tide pushes backwards, the water from the neighborhoods cannot get out into the river and into the ocean, and it just backs up to the lowest points. And if you look at the maps of the area of Sleepy Hollow, that's the low point, and it pushes back. And years ago, as several of you said before, the people that were up here, the public shopping center got built, drains through there, comes out of its back into the ditch that's on the north side of the neighborhood and comes across. And so all that water's coming in. At the same time, all the water from the neighborhood's coming in. The streets in the neighborhood were designed to hold the water, so they fill with water. And then the fall from the backs near where Vice Mayor's house is all the way over to the canal is only about a foot of fall. So it's really hard to get the water to move in something flat like that. So that's a challenge that we're seeing in multiple neighborhoods on the east side, and which is why we saw 1,000 homes, almost all on the east side, have water damage in them. So to go over the broader picture, and I start with the big stuff that takes a little longer, and then get down to the smaller scale of what might help you in the shorter term. So on August 1st, the council authorized us to do a brand new stormwater master plan. So we're underway now updating a citywide plan that will allow us to look at the interaction of all the stormwater throughout the city. You don't want to try to fix one problem and make it worse somewhere else in doing that. So that plan, those take a little while to put together because it takes a lot of analysis of the city. We expect in the 2025 set of capital projects to start seeing the improvements from the master plan. As the mayor mentioned, there's a map out here of the projects we have in the area that are currently in capital projects to be starting design and consideration. Those 6 projects are out there. Those are in design stages now, being considered moving forward. They're in the early stages, but those projects are out there. One of the ones that we're looking at is in the area of Sleepy Hollow. The south side of the neighborhood has that big Nova drainage pond in front of it. Then at the very south of the neighborhood, there's the small pond that the city built a number of years ago and piped the ditch. But your challenge seems to be that most of your water goes up to the north along the east side of the neighborhood and then goes west over to the canal, and trying to get all that water out of there. We have had a positive result here recently. And she may be here, the family that lives in the northeast corner that has the little angled corner where we try to turn the corner to maintain the ditch, have worked with us to get a clearance so we can get back in there and get into that ditch a whole lot easier, and we can run the entire length of maintaining it. We had been having to go through the Publix parking lot, through their fence and into the ditch from there to get at it. So this is going to make it a lot easier to get into that ditch and do the maintenance. I think one of the important things that recognizing that this is a major challenge for the city, and it is I would say right now probably our biggest priority that we have going for the next several years. We've made some substantial changes in how the staff is structured in the areas of drainage and engineering, and in fact the whole team is here back in the back row today. So we've restructured public works, engineering, and our drainage component to put a better focus on this, to get in there. And some of the comments about the equipment that we have, we can buy equipment that's more effective in the Florida swamp. So, trying to find a piece of equipment that you can put in a ditch that stays underwater for hours and hours at a time, it's important to buy the right piece of equipment. Downtime is a problem. If you've got a piece of equipment and you can't keep it running most of the time, we now have people in charge who know what kind of equipment to get, who know how to set up plans, who know how to design and work forward. So there's a lot of change just in the last couple months geared at fixing stormwater issues. They're doing right now. So in addition to the big projects, and I know that when you hear that timeline, that's really disappointing because it's going to be a couple hurricane seasons before those things come to you. It takes a long time to design a project. If you do it wrong, and then we got to get permits too. We can't just dump water. We have to get state and federal permits in certain cases. So those just take a while. So we know that's not satisfactory to say that's all we're going to do. There's short-term projects too. And some of you have seen this, and it was also discussed. So we've got some portable pumps that we've been moving around, and to do the best we can with the heavy summer rains that we were having mostly in July, we've started doing portable pump temporary just tests. Let's see what happens when there's a heavy rain. So I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday afternoon, there was a big heavy rainfall that filled your streets with water. So the thought was if we can pump that small pond to the south as low as possible, will it clear the water out of your neighborhood? Well, it turns out it's like the southeast corner of your neighborhood goes into that pond. The rest of it goes north, so it didn't help as much as we wanted to. And it was loud. So somebody got mad that it was loud. So, but that also allows for another. So you don't stop. So we went out and found some pumps that are quieter. And we also found a pump you can lock so somebody can't go turn it off when we put it on. So you never stop learning as you keep trying. And I think I'm proud of the guys that we've got here to do it, because some people run away from challenge. Some people get nervous about them. And these guys are not. They take it personally that they want to get out there and solve these problems. And they have gone, not only are we doing portable pumps and tests, they're doing what I call tide testing. So they're getting out in kayaks and floating around in the bays and the creeks while we have pumps running to try to follow where the direction of the water is, to figure out what happens at high tide and what happens at low tide so that we can design a more effective project. So they've been out doing that in the 110-degree heat, trying to come up with an answer for you. A couple of projects we already have underway, instead of waiting on a brand new project, they've been trying to decide, can we just add on to it? Is there a way we could go in if you have an undersized culvert? If you have a pipe, I've tried to describe it, sometimes you've got a little skinny straw and you have a big bowl that will hold a lot of water, but you dump a gallon of water, it can't all get through the straw, so it just sits on the backside and waits to drip through, which is what happens in a lot of your neighborhoods. If we can replace that straw with a bigger pipe and get that water out of your neighborhood quicker. So they're looking at existing projects. Is there anything existing that we can go in and just change a few pipes that might be able to help you going forward? And then there's the constant maintenance that's out there, and I know you don't want to hear the just reading off large numbers, but there's a lot of pipe and a lot of open ditch, a lot of pipe and a lot of culverts in the city that we need to maintain, and they're out there doing it all the time with equipment. We're doing our best to keep fixing it. It hasn't ever been just gone. It does break a lot, but then we put it back out and fix it as soon as we get it there. So I think you're seeing with the new leadership in the field, these are people that I listen to. I don't know in the past what occurred because I've only been here for a couple years in this role, but I can guarantee you going forward that people are listening to the guys out in the field. They're coming to your neighborhoods. They're talking to you and hearing you. I appreciate one of you made a point of even thanking Brett and the team for being out there and doing that. They're easy to spot in the big white trucks or the big machine cranking in the backyard. We will continue to keep going out there, continue to hear the knowledge of your neighborhood. I think it's very helpful to have you tell us where did it clog up, where did you see the problems to help us design these solutions. So I hope that helps as the overview that you were looking for. If you need me to add some more, I'll be happy to do that.
Wayne, I appreciate that, and actually I was going to go to in council comments to Vice Mayor Foley next, because not only is that his district, that's his neighborhood and his house flooded. He knows firsthand knowledge. I wanted to you can hear it from him if there's anything that you missed, but Reed, go ahead and take council comments.
No, I think Wayne did a really good job. That's why we're all elected up here to different districts, is so that way we're all kind of feeling different effects of the city. But not only am I in your district, in fact, not only am I in your neighborhood, most of you are on my street. I live at 739 Horseman, and my house flooded. I actually didn't flood from the road. My house flooded from behind me when the ditch there behind Publix filled over. It flooded up, it knocked my fence over, and I got flooded through the back doors of my house. So, it is a massive problem, and I can assure you, I think you're all here for the same reason, really to know that we're not forgotten in Sleepy Hollow, and that we are on the radar. And I can assure you that neighborhood is one of the neighborhoods we're concerned with on the eastern side of Port Orange. On June 22nd, I went out and I took photos because there was flooding in the streets. Actually, on July 25th here, very recently, I drove my truck through the entire neighborhood, not just Terrytown and Sleepy Hollow, even into some other side streets, Christina Court, and took pictures, and I was sending them to Wayne, and he was communicating with Tom and Juno and Brett. And I asked him, I said, hey, we need temporary solutions, ideas, and that's what these guys are doing. This new structure that Wayne has put in place as far as staff, who reports to who and who's in which seat, they're out here looking for temporary solutions that are going to help us in the short term and looking for long-term things, and that's what they're working with when we approved that plan on August 1st. They're looking for things that, unfortunately, like they said, permits, all that, it takes time, but we are aware and we're actively moving towards those things. As far as short-term stuff, trying the pump, that was an idea that came after the last set of pictures I sent in. It's finding that balance of what can we do now to make sure that we don't have something like that happen again, especially from a generic rainstorm. I know you have to feel like I do. Every time I see water in the streets, I have, for lack of the better word, a little PTSD, because I sit there and I'm like, I remember it. I remember I was sleeping on the couch in my front room, and all of a sudden there's water creeping through the back door. And I remember the horrible feeling of being in that house and thinking to myself, how much higher is this going to go, right? And I don't want to feel that way when it rains in the middle of the summer. And I know you guys don't either. But staff is working really hard to come up with solutions. That was part of the deal with the corner lot, getting that resident to allow the city to access, right? We have to have easements. We have to have rights. The state of Florida has some, major property homeowner rights. We can't just walk onto someone's property and say, hey, you're going to let us go back here because we want to. They have to allow us to do that. We have to have that easement. And so, this is a multi-pronged, multi-step process to get us to a better place, but staff is working on that, and I have a lot of confidence in them. And because I live there, I'm giving constant communication and feedback. Even the other day when they first put the pump on, before somebody may or may not have turned it off, I was sending them feedback. Hey, this is where the water level is in the Publix. This is where it is in the streets. Sending in photographs. So I just want you to leave this meeting knowing you're not forgotten, all right, and that our neighborhood is on the radar, all right. And that's one thing I want to make sure I communicate to all of you. So I hope that helps, and I'm sure everyone else will add in some things too. But hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of faith.
Well, and Wayne and I also talked about the things that we all talk about, the small things that unless it's talked about here, a lot of people don't know. You know, there's the little things. It's just like the construction project you don't know is coming until they break ground, but all that work was done behind the scenes, helping us get the word out. And actually, the fact that you're here, it gave us a chance to have a conversation, and I think that's a good thing. Reed, you got anything else?
No, other than just Jordan, if you don't mind, please email me like the registration information. I want to make sure that I find a way to share that. Please and thank you.
Tracy?
Definitely one of 3 major communities inside our community. I feel for y'all. I deal with Sugar Forest. It's in my district, and y'all and Sugar Forest got walloped. Cambridge was the 3rd one, and it's an engineering nightmare. But we have a good new crew. I'll say that to all y'all. Over the last 2 years, a lot of things have changed as far as staff in Port Orange. Nobody likes to hear give them time. We know storm seasons every year. The unfortunate factor is all the permitting fees that it takes, and getting everything accomplished in that time frame is a nightmare. They have a master plan for the floodwaters. Is just comprehensive plan that is just amazing, but unfortunately it can't be done overnight. The stuff that they're doing right now with the pumps and everything is what they can do overnight, trying to figure out how to move water faster. And that's the game of it. It's how do we move water faster, but where do we put it that it doesn't flood somebody else? And I think all of us would agree sometimes, if we could blow it back north, it might be okay, but we're not allowed to do that. So we're dealing with our city's water and other cities' waters coming to us. So it's how fast can we move it out to get it away from us. So you're definitely being heard. Coming to council and sitting up here, the first thing that I got tackled with was roads, and then the next was dealing with flooding. And yeah, it's a wow factor. It's been a learning curve for me, but you're definitely being heard. And the sad part is the stuff that's behind the scenes that you don't see every day that they're trying to do. It doesn't go out to the public's view. So be rest assured they are working on it. It's unfortunately not going to be as fast as anybody really wants. And saying that, it's there's no way around it, right?
It's a process.
It's process. 2 other things I wanted to bring up tonight. We have a process that has worked, finally. Those that are listening, hopefully out there, dealing with Sugar Forest, the demolishing of a house that has been a vagrant and a burr to city and to that community. The asbestos came back that it was negative, so by hopefully the next couple of days, we should have literally groundbreaking, clearing of a troublesome house. So hopefully Sugar Forest is out there listening. I have the before picture already taken, and the after picture will be coming back to back to it real soon. Thank you to staff for getting the permittings and code and everybody in that process to get this house taken care of. It's a real nuisance that being finally gone.
Indeed.
And then Jordan, you don't know me, sir, but I'm gonna do a public spoof plug here that I shouldn't do, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Give me all your information. I will run it through my business, Spruce Creek Scuba. We run VA programs and veteran programs for divers, and they know how to walk and talk and have fun too. So I will be more than glad to put that out there for you, and put you in a bigger crowd. So thank you, sir.
You good?
I'm good.
All right, Scott?
I appreciate so many of you guys coming tonight and talking to us and reiterating a lot of stuff that we do know. And I was born and raised here. I know Rose mentioned she's lived in that neighborhood since 1983. I was just looking up, basically the neighborhood's almost 50 years old now. That neighborhood would not be built today to that standard. It just wouldn't be. It's, you know, having been born and raised here, I had friends that lived in that neighborhood, and I can remember back in the 80s when there were storms and we'd be out there playing in the streets in knee-deep water, and it's a very low area. I'm very realistic when it comes to a lot of these things because I've lived here all my life, and I know that every time you predict what you think the next storm will bring, you're going to get surprised. And I think the mayor said it right. In my opinion, if you live in Florida, there is no such thing as a no flood zone. We live in Florida. It is a subtropical climate. We live in a very coastal area.
Yeah.
You know, since I have been on this council, not a single year has gone by that the council has not fought for flood mitigation projects. We go to Tallahassee, and because by the way, to digress for just 1 second, I don't know, no engineer, nobody has ever come to this council and said, if you had $1 billion, here's what we could do, and we could guarantee you a home will never flood again in Port Orange. It's not going to happen. That storm that we had last year was historic amount of rainfall. If we had $100 million tomorrow and we can put everything in place in a month, we are still going to have homes flood. We know that because of the topography of East Volusia County, and that all the water has to go out Ponce Inlet. Some way, somehow, that's where it's got to go. And so we have watched and we have learned and we have seen the impacts of all the cities north of us that don't have outfall systems, and their water comes to Port Orange. On top of that, with our own water, you know, I live in a community that's 25 years old. There are 23 retention ponds in my neighborhood. 23. There's none in this neighborhood. And so there are huge challenges here, but like everybody has said, this community's on our radar. It's been on our radar. And where we can find ways to help, we will definitely do that. The longer term projects take time, and it's frustrating. We're all frustrated as well at the length of time these projects take, and a lot of it has to do with the cost. The cost is massive, and the permitting process to get the St. John's Water Management District to look at a project and say, okay, yes, you can do that, and we know that it's not going to negatively impact the next person or the next community and all those things. And so we truly appreciate you guys coming to us and sharing these things and reiterating them and keeping them in the forefront for our staff and our city and everybody. And you're going to be seeing opportunities coming in the future years where we go to the state legislature and we're looking for those extra dollars out of Tallahassee for these mitigation projects. I encourage you, write your state legislators, write your state senators, let them know, get behind these Port Orange, not just Port Orange projects, by the way. If it's an East Volusia County flood mitigation project, get behind it. Even if it's in Daytona or South Daytona or wherever, because all that water still has to come our way.
The Nova Canal Pump Station project.
Perfect example.
It will help this neighborhood, and it'll help everybody, our neighbors to the north.
Yep,
South
exactly.
Daytona Beach.
Exactly. So again, completely appreciate you guys. I've been out in your neighborhood. We've had some residents from another neighborhood not too long ago. You know, it's crazy as we're trying to do things. Some of the stories we hear, people turning pumps off. Who does that? We're trying to pump a neighborhood and keep homes from flooding, and people are turning pumps off because of the noise of the pump. It's a couple of nights of noise to save some homes. People are out there turning pumps off. That I just can't even. I have a hard time even rationalize that. We had another community here, great turnout. We talked about a lot of things. We're talking about solutions, the whole 9 yards. I go out to tour the community the next day, and there's a resident out there taking their yard debris and clippings and stacking them where? On top of the storm drains. Right? And I mean, and so we are frustrated. We will keep working. Vice Mayor Foley is 100% right. We are acutely aware of this neighborhood and the problems, and we will keep working to that. We know that the city manager and his team, they're going to do everything they possibly can. As a realist, I want to say, if you live in this community, if you live in Port Orange, please consider getting flood insurance. Because these storms of this size and this magnitude, there is nothing, and I just trying to be realistic, there is nothing on the radar that we can do to stop this in the very near future. And when I say near future, I'm talking the next few years. You know, these big projects, millions and millions and millions of dollars projects, they're going to take some time for us to be able to get that in to make these improvements, but we will. We've been doing it every year all around the city, and there are places that have seen the benefits of the improvements and fixing the infrastructure and making upgrades and things like that, and we're just going to continue to march right on that, and we will do that. And you know, it breaks our hearts when we see these occurrences happen, and we see what all of you have had to go through with your homes and the water. I was over at Vice Mayor Foley's house helping him rip out carpet and helping him salvage what he could help, you know, out of his home, while he's touring neighborhoods and doing the same for others. So we hear you. We hear you loud and clear, and we will absolutely do what we can when we can, as much as possible. So thank you guys again for coming out here tonight.
Drew, what you got?
Well, I can't really add to that. There's been a whole lot covered.
But you're going to try anyway. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to say much other than the plan, the long-term plan. We just voted in, and that's going to take some time. And all of us up here will continue to push and badger and do whatever we can to the city manager to continue with the short-term solutions, fixes, ditch clearing, whatever we can do to get y'all some help. The other night I saw Senator Tom Wright, and I mentioned again the Nova Canal because they had started addressing it the last time I said something about it, and they just stopped. They never came all the way down with the clearing. And I go up and down Nova a lot, and I saw debris and blue tarps and things in the canal that are still there that should have been cleared. So we will just continue to do whatever we can short term, and the long-term plan is in effect. And of course, that one's going to take a whole lot of money, but the short-term stuff we can continue to do and continue to push staff and the manager to keep doing whatever we can to help you.
Okay. With that, I think that we've beat this into the ground pretty good. I am going to take a short 6-minute recess because I know a lot of you are probably ready to leave right now anyway before we continue on with the meeting. We don't have much left, but I'll go ahead and take a 6-minute recess right now. Okay? Thank you. Reviews and reports. Item 12, Citizens Advisory Board Committee for the TPO, Mr. Bobby Ball. Excellent report, Bobby. Thank you.
Well done.
If you think I'm going to be longer than 30 seconds, you've got a mistake coming. Bobby
there's
Ball
some
with the
good news tonight, Bob.
TPO for the CDAC for the TPO. Regular meeting, a couple of regular stuff, but just two things to point out. We're looking at possibly the new census and changing how the voting works within the group. And then the other thing is really the the truck parking on I-4. And I know the DOT is working on the design now, and eventually it'll come to the city if they haven't already spoken to you about getting property along I-4 that's in the city. So that's all I've got.
Excellent.
Perfect.
report.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Item 13, Environmental Advisory Board report. Mr. John Macaluso.
John, hey.
Mr. Mayor, council, staff, how are you? Good to see you all
Good, John.
tonight.
How are you?
I told the mayor it'd be 30 seconds, so let me run up to this.
Start the clock.
Just an update on our last meeting. We took care of, or made a recommendation to council, which was on item 8 of your consent agenda, historic tree removal, Crystal Lake Business Park. I'm sure you all saw that. If you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer it. But our recommendation was to have the trees replaced. Okay. Developer agreed, put on a great presentation for us, so that moved right along. The other thing we had was a presentation from the county, which was directed at Spruce Creek. There's some buildup of silt and oyster bed out by the railroad trestle, and this is an item we've been talking about for a couple of years. Yeah, well, at least a couple of years that I've been around. Finally, we've got some action from the county. So their plan is to remove about 18,000 cubic yards of silt, get that out of the way. Boaters should be happy to hear that, and everybody in the area should be happy to hear. Replace the oyster beds somewhere else. You'll be seeing the presentation, I believe Mr. Berman said sometime in September.
September 19th.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect.
Excellent.
So it was a great presentation, and we want to thank the county for getting back to us and taking some action. We're also looking at the development of a garden with some native plants and educational information over by the kayak side of the Riverside Pavilion out on the river. So we're just putting that together now. And also Tim Berman's keeping us up to date on what's happening over at Riverwalk. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions about what's going to be developed over there and native plants and so on and so forth. So that pretty much sums it up. Any questions?
John, appreciate you.
Sounds good.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Take care.
The public hearing portion of our meeting is now open. Second reading of ordinance number 2023-08, an amendment to Chapter 54, Article 5 of the Police Pension Fund of the Code of Ordinances. Ordinance number 2023-08 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 54, Article 5, Police Pension Fund, amending Section 54-122, definitions, clarifying the definition of compensation to confirm past practice, providing for codification, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve number 2023-08.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item is open on the floor for discussion. Second reading, council, any comments or questions?
No, the second reading was good.
Anyone care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Council, final comments or questions? Seeing none, call the roll.
Councilman Councilman Grubbs.
Yes.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Foley.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. The public hearing portion of the meeting is now open. City Attorney report.
Nothing further.
Excellent report, thank you.
Nice.
City Manager?
To break the streak, I have a couple of them. One, so we already covered the sugar far, so they expect to mobilize and start work on that this week. We're working on the parks bond. The park staff has been spending a lot of time with the Parks Board and super users on it, trying to get input on where to go with this. We are going to start tomorrow doing a survey of the general public, calling people to get feedback on that, because what we want to do is bring to you the most effective list of projects that we believe the voters will support when it comes forward. So all this feedback is trying to get an understanding of what projects have the most public support and what level of funding we think people will do. So when we bring it forward to you, it has the best chance of passing. You may hear from people who are getting calls later in the week for the parks bond.
Okay.
And then the other thing, we sent out the budget book to you at the end of last week, the proposed budget. We were able to do some work getting down to the 499 that we set at the max millage, and so we were able to we got about $130,000 more dollars out of the communications than we thought. We reduced the firefighter request from 6 to 3 to get there as well. So we were able to get within that budget, and that's what's there. We have an on hold, a placeholder on August 29th if council would like to have a workshop to discuss it further. If you would not, we can bring the budget forward on September 5th. And any feedback that you have either on the budget book or anything else, feel free to let me know between now and then. So whatever council would prefer.
I mean, I think we've hashed through quite a bit, and I appreciate it. And I also know that sometimes you do work between first reading and second reading too. So, I mean, I'm not inclined to call for a workshop that to go through everything we've already gone through unless council really wants to.
I think it's be respectful of staff's time, isn't it?
You know, I would say give them the time to go back and keep working.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
City Council Committee reports. We heard from First Step Shelter, so you don't need a report from me on that. On the consent agenda, we approved the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce's agreement, and I wanted to give them a little bit of time to allow them. So once again, I don't have to give this report either.
Good evening, Mayor Burnett, council members, and city manager. I'm Barbara Ann Hegan, President and CEO of the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce, and we wish to thank you very much for your support and collaboration and partnership. We have been working very hard. We have just rolled out our business seminar series for small businesses. Last week we had a networking seminar with 38 people in attendance, and during the listening tour the past 90 days, members have shared the need for business seminars to help them with marketing, access to capital, and being able to connect them with other business leaders. So we are dedicated to continuing to do that. These seminars are open to all residents within the city, and it will be promoted as such. We also wanted to make you aware of a job fair that's coming up on September 14th. It will be held at the Riverside Pavilion, and it's also an apprenticeship fair. And based on the earlier conversations with First Step Shelter, it is so critical having these partnerships to be able to share the employment opportunities within our community. So we are very proud to be able to offer this. We hope that you will share it with your constituents. Anytime we can be able to partner and get people into viable jobs to help bring them to new places. So we are excited for that opportunity, and information will be shared further on that. And then finally, we're working on our community directory, and that is showcasing the quality of life here in the city of Port Orange, which we're very dedicated to. We receive many inquiries in a week on relocation, access to other businesses for referrals, and we continue to be able to share that valuable information. So you'll see that coming out in the weeks ahead. And finally, I'd like to introduce our board chair, Carol Court, that's going to share some other additional upcoming events.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you, Mayor Burnett and Council. Thank you again for your support on behalf of the Board of Directors for the Chamber. Some events that are coming up. We have a business after hours this Thursday. It is at Gather to Grow. So it's right before you go over the Dunlawton Bridge. So there's a bit of a challenge with the parking. So we have requested some cones from you guys so we can help direct the traffic. But please come out, register at pschamber.com, and please come out. And it's $5 for members and $10 for future members.
Very cool little business too, by the way.
Yeah.
Very cool business.
It is. I know. I can't wait. I can't wait. We have a ribbon cutting on Friday too at noon at Wakeman Chiropractic, and that's at the Advent Health building right next to the ER on Williamson at noon. Yes, and lunch will be provided. Coffee and Connections August 31st. It's at Copperline at 9 a.m. So come out there too. That is growing into a really nice. I think it's maybe going to be our 5th one. It has grown. There's a lot of people coming to that. Yeah, it's nice. And our member appreciation party, which is at the end of the month, August 31st, that's when we ask all of our members to come and we give free food, courtesy of Giuseppe's, some drinks. It's just a time for us to say thank you to all of our members. And then our casino night, that's something new that we're doing. We're launching a casino night. It's October 27th, so it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have everything that you would see at a casino, even a magician, even a DJ, and we're even going to do bingo. So we'll get all the women there as well, too, that don't like to play blackjack. But all of these events have sponsorship opportunities, and just register at pschamber.com. And thank you again for everything that you could do for us.
We also want to thank the city manager and assistant city manager and Tim for helping the chamber with business retention calls and helping our existing businesses. That's part of our partnership with the city. Recently we went to visit Bylight with the mayor, and Bylight is growing. They have over 80 positions that they're trying to fill, and they are a major employer here in the city of Port Orange. So we have them at our job fair coming up. So we appreciate all of your support. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Appreciate you both, and we'll see you Thursday night at the
Yes.
after hours.
Yes, thank you.
One last item, I just wanted to remind everybody, next Tuesday, August 22nd, is Election Day in the city of Port Orange. We have a special election, one seat open. I encourage everybody, if you haven't voted by mail, to do it and get it in the mail in the next couple of days. Otherwise, I'd love to see you at the ballot box next Tuesday. It's always amazing. We have in this city the best turnout of any city when it comes to this, but special elections, when there's one thing going on, it's a low turnout election. I want to see people show up, even though there's one thing going on. You're in and you're out. Come vote. Let's take care of it. Show Port Orange pride. Everybody have a good night. We'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Hey, Wayne.